Hello and good evening. The name is Kobe, Spiky, and Chroma, and you're listening to Joy 99.7 FM. Time is 7:12 p.m. and at this time, the geeks come to play. We are the ones that break down technology and bring it closer to home. Basically, as complicated as technology seems to a lot of people, we try to make it as simple as ABC. Today, we're talking about data and your privacy, your security, how secure your data is. You know, we've been hearing a lot of people here on the news, tech news all the time. Oh, there's been a data breach. Oh, there's been a data breach. My data has been leaked. And people already, that aside, are people who have been giving out their data to other businesses, other individuals without knowing what they're using this data for. When I say data, I'm not talking about your internet credits, the bundle that you use on your phone. I'm talking about your personal information. Information that can identify you personally. So like your name, your age, your date of birth, your medical information, your financial information, all that stuff that is identifiable to you that people can use against you. You need to know how to keep this information or data personal and private and secure. And to do that with us is Miss Patricia Poku, who is the Executive Director of the Data Protection Commission. Hello, Madam.
Hello.
And welcome back
Thank you.
to Geek Squad. You've been here before.
Yes.
Yeah, the usual suspects, Kweku Anansi, Michael Ajete, and Winston Wuche.
What's good?
Yeah. Happy Easter, guys, although it's past.
Yeah, happy Easter.
Belated happy returns.
Never mind. So, before we get into talking about all the technicalities about data, there's something that drew my attention that I wanted us to basically hone in on. Some of the very mundane things that we do with our data. For instance, I was added to a WhatsApp group, and as a welcome, I was asked my name, my birthday, a picture of mine, everything I do, and obviously it's a car group, so my favorite car, a lot of data. And I was asked to send this data to the administrator of the page who was going to put it in a database of all the members. First question I asked them is, are you guys registered with a DPC? And they didn't get the joke, you see, but I didn't give them that information because someone told me once how he was approached to sell data he'd collected from just a group of people that he used to, help with studies and all that. So they came together as a study group and he collected all their data. And then someone came and was like, I'd give you money for this information, for this data. Now, that is how important data is. I mean, elsewhere in the more developed world, big data is a big thing right now. People are trying to mine as much data as they can so they can sell it. Now, question is Ghana ready? Are the citizens of Ghana ready to learn how to protect their data, to learn about how important even your name is to you? Ms. Patricia, we're going to start off with some education because I know I learned a lot the last time I was at your office about some of the very, very simple things that, people should know. And I think I should give you the opportunity to educate some of the people, some of the risks, some of the very basic risks that people in our day-to-day lives end up, exposing their data. So, first off, what should people know about their data when giving it to, say, an organization or a person?
So the saddest thing about data sharing is when you willingly put your data out there without knowing or realizing the value of your data. There's a saying out there in the technical world that your network is your net worth. So the more people who are connected to you and linked to you determines your value. If you put your data out there, social media, WhatsApp, friends, employers, then your data begins to gain value.
Right.
And because it has value, there's a monetary value that can be put on it for those who want to buy and sell data. Because we are in the world where profiling is a business differentiating factor For many businesses, it has marketing value. If a company is able to determine your preferences, what you prefer, what you like, what you would like to eat, what time of the day you want to go online, what you will buy, the colors you prefer, the sizes that you go for, areas where you want to shop. Is it online? Is it Amazon? Is it eBay? The qualities that you want. It determines what they put your way. And companies like Google has created so much knowledge online to analyze us so much so that they can put exactly what you want in the space where you see yourself online. And so the value of data is so high that is now akin or aligned to oil or gold. So you hear people say data is the new oil, data is the new gold, because the whole world is moving into a digital economy. When we say digital economy, it means that companies are no longer using manual files. They are putting it into soft electronic format where it's easy to manipulate. At the click of a button, you can do so much with data in your hand that it's companies like Google are putting value to the information that can surround you, which is your metadata. Metadata is information about you, things that concern you. What do you like? What do you want to eat? So if this information is pulled into a pot, so much so that decisions can be made about you, it is called profiling. And if you can be profiled to the point of correctness, then the right things can be sold to you. So it has marketing value. It's cost effective for businesses. Businesses can make the right decisions about what to produce, how much to produce, which market to take it to, who will buy. And so for them, it's a lot of work because it doesn't waste their time. It doesn't waste their money. They present exactly what you want to buy to you, and they get a lot of value just for knowing so much about you. And so why should somebody gain money for knowing you more than you know yourself? Having so much information about you so that they can become rich and then you just remain as you are. Or sometimes you are even impacted negatively, because I can give you 2 examples. You can go to a bank to ask for a loan, and to bring it to our world so that we understand that you could be turned down just because you live in a certain area. So they have your postcode, or in Ghana terms, they have your Ghana post, what's it called? Address. Ghana postal code. They know where you live. They know your NHIS number. They know what foods you like to buy. They know which school, which WhatsApp, social media, and all of that you socialize on. So they can decide whether you are a person who will pay off a loan or who won't pay a loan because of the people you play with or socialize with. Decisions can be made about you that is detrimental to you, or that is which can distress you. So you will be wrongfully refused a loan. Worse still, you could be in hospital and be of the wrong ethnic origin, or wrong community group, wrong social community, or earning power, and be denied basic stuff like blood or medication because you don't fit the category of people who are called special enough to have it. This is the kind of problems that profiling can create.
Right.
So there will become there will be a lot of segregation in society. There's discrimination, and people will be denied of basic services and choices because of how they have allowed their data to be used. Most of this data you have given out willingly yourself. It's avoidable. It's something that you can change if you know what to do, and that's why we are making awareness available to people, coming here speaking about it, so that you become more aware of what harm you can do to yourself if you don't understand how you put information out about yourself and where you put it.
Okay, so how to put information out there about yourself and where you put it. So typical example, as you made, going to the bank, and then you have to fill a deposit slip where you have like a copy. So you fill all that information and you make a mistake. And then you pick another one and you just put the old one in the bin. Is the DPC, controlling how that data that has been dumped in the bin is disposed of? So say these people get up and then they're just going through it in the bin. And I know how valuable data is. So I decide that I'm going to be standing at the banks, and anytime they throw out the rubbish, I go and fetch all those papers and then build a database out of it. That's
not far-fetched. It's been known to be done before, where cleaners have the most access to our data. if you can imagine. When
Yeah.
the banks shut down, they don't have a clear desk policy, if they don't have a proper filing structure, then they leave papers all over. They have papers left on the photocopier, some in the bin. Cleaners can have access to a whole lot of information they can sell. So it's not a joke. And in the financial sector, especially, they have a dual responsibility because they have their industry code of practice that tells them how they should run a bank. Then they have this legal obligation of the Data Protection Act that also layers above that what the law expects of them. But most banks are under the radar, not doing the right thing. So you have a right to ask when you walk into a bank whether they are registered with the Data Protection Commission or whether they are adhering to the industry code of practice known as the PCI DSS code of practice, and then make a decision whether this is a bank you want to bank with or not. If they are not registered with the Data Protection Commission, it means they are not acting responsibly. They are not accountable to you as a person in Ghana. And I always avoid using the word citizens because data protection is beyond citizens. It's an extraterritorial law, which means that it applies to people beyond the borders of any country. So it's people present in Ghana at any point in time. Citizens, tourists,
non-citizens.
people passing through, immigrants, visitors, all of us are covered by the Data Protection Act.
So, from what you're saying, that means that the responsibility is on both us, the citizens, and the DPC,
The DPC.
as in enforcing that they do the
so
right
if
thing.
you look at it like that, then it's triple.
Okay.
So the DPC has a responsibility to enforce the law.
Yeah.
The banks or other institutions have a responsibility to obey the law and act responsibility. The individual has the right and power under the act to exercise their rights.
Okay. So, Winston,
Yeah.
you have questions.
Oh well, not just a little to add now. So if you're wondering why data is so valuable, like you said, is the new gold. Let's take just a simple scenario. Let's say I want to start a business selling jollof, and one of the fastest way I would know my market is I go on Facebook. I check out all the jollof versus wachi polls, the Ghana versus jollof, and from just those posts, from the information about 5 million people preferred jollof over wachi. With that, I know 5 million people I can sell my jollof to. It's that simple. Data provides you with preemptive strikes. You can predict what the person is going to do, and you will provide a service to the person before the person even thinks about it. Recently, I saw it. I don't know if it was a tweet or it was an article, but there was this woman who was testing AI. You know, now there are these new things where when you are searching certain things, it pops up as ads on your web pages. So she said she screamed into her phone that she's pregnant for 5 minutes, and nothing happened. That was Twitter. Yeah, that was Twitter. Her web page, nothing happened, nothing changed. But a week later, she was mailed for free baby formula. That's a whole box of free baby.
She was mailed it.
Yeah. She didn't ask for it. It was just mailed to her. So that's how valuable data is.
So, Michael.
I mean, like Winston was saying, these things do happen. People are not aware of people looking for and checking out their data. The Twitter thing was an example where someone purposely set out, I am pregnant, just to see what the effect on data is. I'm sure our listeners can, and even those here in the studio can attest that sometimes you can be having an idle conversation with someone, and then when you go online and you don't even necessarily even go and search for that thing, it's suddenly recommended everywhere you look. You open YouTube, then the first 2 videos, it is there waiting for you.
Yeah,
You
I've
open
experienced
Facebook,
that.
then an ad is there. Like, I was talking about somebody with this. The person doesn't, my microphone was off. It doesn't matter. That data is being monitored. And here's a case where, it's linked to you. This is not someone that's gone onto somebody else's page. It's linked directly to you because they already have a metadata of everything you are. Then the scariest thing is, these people aren't aware of how much data they are freely giving out.
Yeah.
On Twitter, it's happening more and more where there'll be an index of words tied to a date or something, and people say, if you are born on this date, if you're born in this month and your name was this, if the first letter of your name was this and your second the first letter of your last name was this, what would be your superhero name?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
would be your food you eat and thing. Not realizing that by answering these things,
questions.
yeah,
Yeah.
giving people insights to who you are,
Yeah.
to not merely just collect your data, they can ask, they can then start to narrow it down. A lot of services to sign on to require you to put in certain security questions.
Yeah.
Oh, what dates, where you were born, parents' things, people's private data that you need to get your password back to keep your account safe. And then around about if someone asks you the same thing, you freely just go and give it on the internet because yay, I'm going to get likes, I'm going to get retweets.
But she did mention that the value of your
Your network is your net
is your
worth.
net. So when she said that, it was very funny for me. I was like, oh, so that's why people do so much for the retweets, because that
Mhm.
makes you a very valuable. If you have 10K retweets,
That makes you very
Network is your
valuable.
network.
yes, that makes you
You
quite.
wake up and tweet good morning and get 10,000 retweets. Someone else to say good morning.
No
keep quiet
retweets.
to
So, quick one, Nancy. Like
well,
from your side.
well, to hackers, data is very, very important.
Mm.
You know, before you even start an attack, you need to, look for information about the target. You know.
Right.
You need to find email addresses on LinkedIn. You need to find the location. You need to find which servers they are using. And most of these people really put those information outside.
Mm.
I quite remember I was looking for my number on Facebook. I know I've never put any number there before. Okay, but I keyed in my number and it appeared on an image. Someone took an image in front of my shop and my number
Oh.
appeared in it. It just appeared. You know, I was so shocked.
Oh, that's interesting. But you see,
Meaning
all
they're reading
these
data
from the
within-
images. Well,
within the image.
now and then we know they're capable of. I'm even more concerned with, because this is the mistake that some of the literates make. Now let's look at the semi-literates and then the illiterates. Those who don't even know how important that name of theirs is. And we were speaking before the show, and Miss Patricia, you mentioned something that was very
Let's say
interesting.
Pat.
Pat. About the
No.
just Pat. About the ID, the national ID system. How some people didn't know. Winston. Like they had different names on different, platforms.
Yeah, so we've been having discussions on the international landscape
Right.
about what is a valid digital ID,
Right.
and it has to start from somewhere.
Yes.
And if we look at the Ghana scenario, they are looking for people with proper birth certificates or some valid alternative ID to present to the National ID Authority so they can be given that national ID. What if you don't have any valid alternative ID? Some people came on another radio show that I was on to explain the circumstances they were in, where they had used their first name here, a last name there, middle name, changed their date of birth here and there to make it look like they're younger or older for different purposes, put different details on their electoral registration, different details on their national health data. So they didn't have two IDs that matched. And our national ID pulls in data from all of these sources, checks and validates them against each other to confirm that you are you. And if none of these IDs match, then how do you identify yourself? And it's an established knowledge that across Africa, at least in every country, at least 35% of the people don't have an ID at all.
So they are
So-
John Doe's basically.
Yes, so how do we then get people like this identifying themselves in the digital economy where everything is based on being able to uniquely identify
By yourself.
yourself?
Now, another instance that is of very serious importance to me is when you walk into an office building and then you're going to see someone and there's this booklet or this
Or a
book,
host
a
there.
full scap, right? Book where you have to write your name, your phone number, the person you're going to see, where you're coming from, and then you sign.
Yes, signature.
Yes.
Very.
I have been very concerned with that. Now, as the DPC, is this legal?
This is so yesterday. I'm so against it. And I complain in every office I go to about. I just want them to ban Foolscap Books production, that's all. Because
It would affect the students, unfortunately.
So that in Ghana they wouldn't have, because almost every reception
Yeah.
has these books. It is in a digital economy that we are trying to have in Ghana. This is so yesterday, and we are asking for emerging technologies and innovations to come up, new technical people developing software to bring us a solution to this, so that we can have some digitized way of receiving people at reception, and do away with this hard copy booklets that sometimes are piled.
And the fact that
and these are
the cleaner,
trackable,
once again,
auditable movement of people. And now location data is personal data too.
Very,
very, very personal.
And when you have piles of this one, where are you going to search for the person?
You see,
Yes.
the concern here is, once again, just like the bank scenario I gave, I just tip a cleaner,
Yes.
and he just has to give me that book, because nobody's going to ask, it
It
went
is
missing.
so unuseful.
I mean, how many people
because,
cross-check those books to figure out when someone came,
Yeah.
when he left?
Well,
How many people launch?
most CEOs
yes,
I
right,
know
it's
don't
standards.
ever put their correct
Yeah, exactly.
telephone number or details, and they are never cross-checking
You know what? That's a
anything.
good point, because what if you came into the office and you know someone works here? You just look in the attendance book and you can get the person's phone number, and you don't even have to find the person. You just walk out.
Or you could easily just, let's say you walked in right after a very beautiful lady. She put her full name and her number. You just have access to that.
Apparently, this
information.
happens
And
then
in
you
sometimes.
start
fact, that
stalking
is a
her.
breach on the part of the company for unauthorized
Exactly.
access to that lady's information.
It's happened to a friend of mine in the bank.
Yeah, apparently it happens in the banks a lot. I've heard.
And
quite
it's being
some
given
of
to you
those
to
stories.
watch.
Exactly. You have access to it, so you can go through the whole list.
It's very
And
bad.
take your time.
So now the question is, so how does a DPC monitor these people to make sure that they are, obeying the laws and following?
So to date, we've been more on the cooperation angle than a punitive, hard enforcement type of managing the mandate, because let's face it, data protection is new to the whole nation, new to the region, African region, and generally to the world. And so we are taking the stance of educating the public and educating data controllers, such as these institutions, inviting some of them, in fact all of them, to contact the DPC and get a person trained, at least one person to the professional level, who will own the privacy program of that entity. Someone that we can have as a go-to person to push, did you know how to do this kind of training and awareness, so that together as a nation we will be learning and moving towards a more accountable style of working together. So the announcements are out there, the advertisements and the details are out there, and also the law is there for all the organizations and entities to be aware of and to seek legal action. So if we haven't contacted you, that is no reason to be non-compliant. But we are there for you to come, so we train somebody for you, so that if something goes wrong, or we get a complaint, or we stumble upon an issue to do with your organization, then we do take that enforcement action seriously. Some of the enforcement action is to insist that you train someone immediately, or change that practice, or depending on how seriously that enforcement is, we will ask you to stop processing. And 2 weeks ago, we've asked a pastor to stop processing because he's put somebody's video that he delivered, or what he do the spiritual thing on Facebook, and refused to take it down. And so we've asked him to completely stop processing.
Great.
Wow. I have
I
a
think-
question. Okay, so I don't know, have any of you ever experienced a mobile money scam?
Oh, you have.
No, but I'm just asking. So, but after the experience of the scam, I suspected. Yeah. Oh no, I didn't give out any money. Don't worry. Fortunately, I was smarter than them. It was a fun morning. But I realized that out of my usual mobile money runs, I did a transaction at a place I'd never done it before. That was the only one outlier. So I suspected that it was them. Now, when you go to do a mobile money transaction, you have to they write your number and everything, and they write the amount you took out. So if, let's just say hypothetically that it's the mobile money merchant who is planning these scams, who is to blame, or who is to be held accountable for such an action?
So what the DPC is doing right now is, on the high level, engaging with all regulators of different industries. And so every regulator that we have on our radar has been asked to add data protection and their eligibility criteria. So those existing businesses that already have their licenses, when they go to renew, would have to add a data protection registration before they are able to renew. Or new onboarding, new starters will have to go and register with the Data Protection Commission before they can kick off business. This is the method we are using to do a catch-all in a very quick time. So a lot of, especially in the financial sector and in the mobile industry, has kicked off, and we are getting people running to the commission to come and make themselves aware, so they are on our radar. The small to medium-sized organizations, we are supporting directly so we have drop-in sessions, free drop-in sessions that you can just come into the DPC and get training on. Such as, I'm a data controller, what are my responsibilities? Or I'm a data subject, what are my rights? It's running every day of the week. You just have to come or contact DPC and say you want a drop-in session, and they'll put you on a short course for free.
Okay.
Now, I'm more concerned. So let's say I find out that this institution has been breached and my data has been leaked, and many people, let's say, about 300,000 people's data have been leaked. For some reason, they have not disclosed this information. Can a DPC tell, like, that this company has been breached and all that data has been leaked?
So we are about to relaunch our website where we will have an area for name and shame.
Okay.
List companies who have fallen...
Who have
breached the law and have not cooperated. Even if they've cooperated, we will tell you what the result is. So that is coming, and we'll begin to list the named and shamed. In the meantime, if they haven't, when we have enforced against any organization, any aspect of the law that they have breached, then that information is available to share with anyone who inquires.
So they're not fined?
While under the Ghana law, we don't fine directly, but we have the power to prosecute organizations who are falling prey of this or have breached the law. Once we make a determination that you are non-compliant, then those who have been impacted with the non-compliance have a right to take that determination from DPC and claim compensation. If you don't compensate them, they can then go to court.
Right. Because so I've got a message here from a friend that's very interesting. He's saying, so how about those people's CVs and certificates now being used for Kofi Brookman? Is that a data breach?
Oh yes, it is definitely a data breach. Recently, DPC staff went for lunch and his kinky was wrapped with life insurance paperwork.
Wow.
And that life insurance company we wrote to and took enforcement action against.
So if you're listening
so we went and retrieved the whole pile of life insurance papers, and we got them to take action, and they did do something about it, but they are on the list of organizations that we will
have infringed.
Yes.
Great. So if you're listening to us, you can send us a message on WhatsApp and Telegram. The number is 0244 340437. 0244 340437. So you send us a message on WhatsApp or Telegram.
Spike, I have a question.
Sure.
A telco company in Ghana here said maybe around last year that it's collecting data, tracking people's location so that it can use it to deal with Ebola. Do you understand? So I was asking, does Ebola really need tracking? Do you have to track people and their location using heat signals to determine where a lot of people are and so on just for Ebola? We know that Ebola comes to the hospital first and then sometimes they can determine it. Why don't Ghana themselves take this thing on, but rather giving our information to a third party to do all this?
So there is a processing type called processing for the global good.
Right.
Which this seemingly is in that category, but is going about it the wrong way. If you want to process for the global good, you need to do the necessary risk assessment, make a presentation to the commission to agree with you that you need something called a legitimate interest, meaning that the people involved or the volumes of data involved is so much that you can't contact any every individual affected. And so we have to agree with you to just apply mass blanket rule and then process something that benefits us all. But it's not a decision that can be taken internally by the organization alone. They need to consult the commission to agree that there's some ethical reason
Behind it.
behind if there's an epidemic going and something has to be done, then of course yes, but you can't just out of the blue in this current time when there's no Ebola decide that I want to prevent Ebola, so I'm collecting. That would be illegal.
Right. So we have a message here from Virus. He says, "Hi, please ask if the telecommunications companies are part. Please, madam, go check them. They give our numbers to banks and we get unwanted texts." That's
So,
from Virus.
The data protection law binds the Republic in Section 91. It means that every organization or entity in the country that exists needs to comply with the law. So it's obviously applies to them.
So basically, it's the same question also coming. Please, what about savings and loans companies who manage to get your number and send numerous messages to especially government workers?
The Bank of Ghana has already effected the regulator collaborative effort with us, where every entity that falls within the jurisdiction of within the scope of a financial sector entity has to have a data protection license before they can operate. And this applies to savings and loan companies. If they have a name and you know, just let us know.
So Virus comes again. He says, "Madam Pa, name and shame Pa. Please, this is Ghana. Name and shame does not work. Please, if there are no fines, then forget it." That's Virus again.
We will eventually, obviously, we will, if we name and shame you, it means that we've taken action against you. So they won't be named and shamed until unless we have
Action has been
taken
taken against
enforcement
them.
action and it's cost them in some way. The fact that we don't fine doesn't mean that it's of no cost to the organization, because I said before that if we make a determination, then everyone impacted can claim compensation.
Right.
And that is a heavy cost to that organization.
Yeah.
And a reputational loss, and they could lose all their customers to their competitors.
I mean, exactly. If I found out that my telecommunication was breaching my data, I don't think I would still use that network, would you?
I have a question.
Sure.
Now, this may be a bit delicate. So, how do you handle a data breach from a government agency? Because some time ago, yeah, we happened on an interesting breach. And yeah, we're wondering what was going to happen. But yeah, that's besides the point. So how do you deal with?
So I'm very, very able to say that the government sector are the highest non-compliant group, and every CEO in Ghana knows how much I'm on their case. I'm always on the government platform, kicking off, making a lot of noise, harassing them, threatening to come on radio and list their names.
Wow.
And so they know me and they know themselves, and a lot of them have heard from me this year with enforcement letters. I just haven't put the enforcement letters out, but a lot of government institutions have had enforcement this year and are taking action. Many of them, I have to be fair, have also trained practitioners this year. We've trained about 100 practitioners for the government sector this year.
Speaking of training, you have an international conference coming up in Ghana.
Yes.
So you want to tell us about it?
It's huge.
Yes, I realized.
So we have the very first ever African-initiated Data Protection International Conference, led by all the Data Protection Commissioners of Africa, being hosted here in Ghana in June, beginning 24th June, and we have the whole world attending. So we have all our African commissioners coming here, then the commissions of Africa, like the ECOWAS, the East Africa Commission, South Africa Commission, Central Africa, and the AU also coming.
Wow.
And from the international landscape, we have Council of Europe, European Commission, UK Commission, all Commonwealth commissioners also coming to Ghana that week. Then we have stakeholder organizations like Mozilla Firefox. We have some social media entities preparing to join. We have technology companies coming on board, innovative, privacy-enhancing technology developers coming, different organizations coming. We have the academia coming to discuss what the research is in this sector and what their findings have been, new researches that they're embarking upon. We have funding companies wanting to fund outcomes specifically for Africa. The purpose of this conference is to look at, in this thinking of data protection and privacy, what is very peculiar and specific to this Africa region that is not necessarily present in the global north. When I say global north, Western countries, they don't have some of our problems. And so
Like
some of the
problem.
things that they are passing on to us to deal with, it just doesn't work. It's not just a fit for our region. Some of the reasons are because of our cultural bias, our non-complaining culture, non-assertive culture, the level of awareness of the subject, and the low enactment of data protection laws across Africa in itself is a problem, and lack of executive buy-in. So the lack of political willpower in the region hasn't pushed forth the need to pass the law and enforce the law in the region, so that individuals have the channels to exercise their rights. So we're inviting civil society to all come, and it's happening at the Accra International Conference Center, where we will have these specific areas pulled into workshops that will be discussed over a whole day, unlike normal conferences where you go to panel speakers talking, then you ask a question and it's over. We will sit you in a workshop for a whole day. It starts on Wednesday afternoon, so it's not all day as such.
Okay.
You do Wednesday afternoon, then you come back Thursday morning in the same workshop to discuss particular areas that is of interest to you. So on registration, you'll be asked to select a workshop. You sit in that workshop, and then different presentations will be made to you from different experts from Africa and internationally from all over the world to give you an overview of the sector as you know it in Africa and as it should be internationally, what the best practice is. And then we think about how we move forward with it for Africa. So we will make decisions for Africa in Ghana here in June and document a 12-month action plan following that conference that will be effected in Africa for Africa in data protection speak that works for us.
Right. So the whole workshop is going to actually create decisions that are going to impact the whole of Africa, not just
Yes,
Ghana.
all of Africa, because we have all of Africa coming. We have the AU inviting reps from all African countries to come here, in addition to the established data protection commissions, which is about 14 countries. So reps from countries that haven't passed the law would come as observers to also understand and get a feel of why they need to go and pass the data protection law. And we have workshops covering key areas, things that Africa is leading on that is not in the other worlds, like financial inclusion, where we have advanced the cashless systems using mobile technology. This Africa is leading the world on. It's not in other countries. And then we have other strands of workshops, such as this processing for global good that I talked about, digital ID challenges. We have similar processing for religious reasons is really an African thing.
Yes,
It's not
it
an
is.
international. So these peculiar angles of processing that we have, processing in humanitarian circumstances, which is very big here in Africa and other developing countries, which the other worlds don't really experience. We will put this into workshops so we can really brainstorm how we can make data protection work for Africa.
What's the date again?
It starts on the public sessions are 26th and 27th June. Because the first 2 days are closed sessions for the commissioners only.
Okay, so we have a caller on the line. Hello?
Yeah, how are you?
Very well.
Yeah, good. I have a couple of questions, so I'll indulge your producer not to cut me off. Number one, and they must be answered, please.
Sure.
The last time I called, some were not answered. The same lady was in the studio when I called. Why must data controllers be asked to register and pay fees? I want to ask, don't you think that would deter them from registering? Then my second question is, beyond registering, don't you have ways of identifying those who have not been registered and making them compliant? Then the third question, which I asked some time back, and I now require your guest to give me a response because she was the one I asked. How many companies have been clamped down so far? I mean, those companies that send us unsolicited emails every now and then. Then finally, unsolicited SMS messages. Then finally, the EU introduced the General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR, that affects websites the world over, including Ghana. You know, our data regulation, does it extend beyond Ghana? If yes, then she should tell us or illustrate to me how she can find a website in New York, for instance, collecting and breaching data about Ghanaians, because they can do it to us. They can find you if you don't tell them that you're collecting cookies, you don't have a privacy policy. That's what the GDPR stands for, among other things. So what are we also able to do in order to find a website in New York which collects data about Ghanaians and breaches that data? Please, let all questions be answered, please.
Sure thing. They are very good questions.
Okay, so I'll try to remember all your questions and answer them.
I wrote them all down.
So to remind me.
First one is why must data controllers be asked to register and pay fees?
So in the Ghana Act, the Data Protection Commission was established, but the Ghana Data Protection Commission is self-funding entity. We need to generate our own revenues to manage the commission. And so the registration fees are a source of revenue to the commission to then build capacity, and we charge according to the size of the organization and volumes involved and so many other factors. But then we are able to, like I said before, support the small to medium-sized entities directly because they can't afford to appoint a practitioner full-time. And so it's collecting the revenue, building internal capacity, and then supporting other data controllers who cannot manage and even the big ones to implement their compliance program and also to support the smaller ones.
Sure.
Next question.
Next question is, how do you identify those controllers who are collecting the data?
So every data controller has the requirement to register with us. And I told you about our engagement with regulators and also industry bodies. So that is beginning to kick off a requirement through other channels that they are linked to. So if you are, for example, a mobile money operator, you at a point go through telecoms, the mother company, one way or the other. They are going to require that registration of. It's taking time for that to take off, but eventually the net is closing in, and they are all coming. For example, Bank of Ghana said no forex bureau can come for a license unless they've come through to us. So all the forex bureaus are beginning to run to the commission. So we are using regulators to also pull them in. It will take time, but eventually it will be hard to be under the radar in Ghana.
And then the third one is, how many companies have been clamped down so far?
This year, I was just looking at the letter just before I came here, and regionally, we've issued about 600 enforcement letters, even from the beginning of this year.
Before I get to the next question, we've got a caller on the line. Hello?
Hi.
Sir.
Barky, I'm Freeman.
Hi, Freeman.
Yeah, I have. I'm an ardent listener of your program. I'm an IT professional.
Great.
I like the program. It's great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. But I have a question for the madam. Is she aware that the mobile money agents are data controllers, and they have a huge amount of data in terms of mobile numbers at their disposal, and what are they doing to control and ensure that people's numbers are secured? Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling.
So that's on the list of questions.
Yeah.
So what's my next question?
So does the DPC's powers extend beyond Ghana?
Okay, so that's called the extraterritorial nature
Yeah.
of data protection, which I mentioned before. So the Ghana laws, like the GDPR, extends beyond Ghana if you are processing Ghanaians' data.
Okay.
For that matter, it's become like a web of requirements from one commission to the other, one jurisdiction to the other. So we have the international conventions, and the convention for data protection is called Convention 108 plus, housed by the Council of Europe. That means that every commissioner has to have international cooperation with other data protection commissions across the world.
Right.
So the GDPR it's come out loudly because all of Europe meshed together to form that law. But it's just like the Ghana law. They also have to comply with the Ghana law. So equally, the GDPR applies to us, and our law also applies to them. Now, under international conventions and international cooperation, we can also require them to correct and to enforce a law on behalf of Ghana if we have reason to believe that someone abroad is abusing Ghanaian data. So it applies equally. And the GDPR supervisory authorities cannot come into Ghana and enforce directly. They have to come through the
Through the
Ghana
DPC.
Commission.
Okay.
So if they feel like if they've got reason to believe that someone's not complying with the GDPR, they will come through the Ghana
Okay.
DPC.
The same way, if you
and
also
we would do the same.
Right.
We
right.
would do the same. So it applies equally, and we are also preparing to accede to the Convention 108.
Okay, so you have another question here. Please, can Madam tell us the very 3 action steps to be taken when an organization links credentials of yours to a different body without your notice? That's Saint PDM in Dansoman.
So basic thing you can do if your credentials have been leaked is first go to that company and verify that has actually happened.
What if they don't
If
accept?
they don't verify, you can come to us, but you have every right to go to an organization and ask them, what do they hold about you? Simple question. What do you have on me? Who have you shared it with? How long have you had it? How did you get it? When did I give it to you? What is your retention policy? Retention policy is how long do you want to keep it? When are you going to destroy it? How are you going to destroy it? These are basic questions called the who, what, where, how, when of the data. You've got every right to ask these questions. And they have to enable transparency. So they need to explain to you. They don't come to us. Simple.
Okay. So the last caller, his question was about the mobile money agents and the huge amount of data that they have. I believe that you...
Yes, they are
already-
data controllers.
Yeah.
Yes, they collect data. Yes, we know of their existence. And yes, we do want to enforce, but we do pick our battles because there are so many non-compliances in Ghana, and we are tackling them bit by bit. We'll get
Great.
to them.
Thank you very much for joining us, Madam Pat. Patricia Hoku from the Executive Director of the Data Protection Commission. I did this with Winston Wadger and Michael Ajete and Kweku Anansi. My name is Kobe Spiking Kroma. The show was produced by Delaglanu, Selwyn Ofori Streaming, and Abeku Sankofi. Catch us again next week. Next week is a Q&A session, so pile up all your tech problems. The geeks will be here to answer it. Ciao, and see you guys next week.